again, my dad is not actually a man of very many words in terms of profound advice. But one of the things he asked me one time was, do you want to know a little bit about everything or everything about something? And I said, well, I want to know a little bit about everything. And he kind of, derided me and say, oh, that's a jack of all trades, master of none, because he was actually in the trades, but he was like, extremely knowledgeable on plumbing.
Dom, thanks so much for joining us. I guess really where we like to start in a lot of ways is right now you're a CTO. That's an awesome position that I think a lot of people who are listening are like, I want to be a CTO. I want to rise to the top in the engineering space. I don't, at least for me, I did eventually go into engineering school when I went to college. When I was 8, 10, 12, 15 years old, I wasn't thinking I want to be a CTO, right? Maybe I knew, hey, I was good at math and science. What was the stages or kind of the origin story that's led you to where you're at?
Yeah, that's really an interesting question, because I didn't necessarily think of myself as on a path to, being CTO. Maybe, if you would have asked me 15 years ago, I would have said, no, I'll never make it there. I love being an engineer. I love locking myself in a closet and doing all that kind of stuff to really work hardcore on the tech. But, about 10 years ago, maybe a few bit more, our CEO came to me and kind of sat me down. We love what you're doing, but there's more to life than just being an engineer, and we think you could do more if you focus on not just building the product, but making sure people are using it and buying it. And this whole conversation about product market fit and all that is just as important as having the best product. Someone's got to want it, or you don't get to build the next generation of the product. So with that in mind, I've kind of focused on skills that aren't necessarily the hardcore engineering, but enabling my team of engineers to be even better. And so I think that's really where I excel. And, CTO can be a bunch of different things at a bunch of different companies. I have a lot of latitude in what I do to make the product better through engineering, but make the product, work better for the customers by working directly with them, make sure that customers know more about the product by working through marketing and our biz dev group and all of that. So CTO is a really great role. It might not be for everyone. CEO is a really great role. It might not be for everyone. But don't cap yourself.
Well, okay, so Shane.
Yeah, I mean, I would even like to take a step back
there. Don't be a CEO.
There.
I think that's what he's saying. He's saying, hey, you're actually indirectly saying
I'm
Shane
permanently unemployable. So CEO, I just have to give myself the job at this point. So like CEO will always be what will happen. It's inevitable, professionally. But well, Dom, I want to get a little into that. So we skipped and it was like, I didn't know that I was going to be a CTO. Like, how did you even know you were going to be an engineer though? Because I have to imagine there's people that are going to be on here listening where it was like, I didn't even know that I was going to be an engineer. Like, what sparked that in you? Because there's a lot of people that maybe they're like, oh, engineering would be cool, or software engineers are awesome, but like, I'm not smart enough. I'm not creative enough. Like, there's all of these things that people tell themselves that prevent them from taking that potential leap of faith. You did it. You did the cool stuff. You're at a company. You're holding a title that, a lot of people could dream of. But like, what was that first? I don't know. So there's a lot of people that are like, oh, it was like this thing, and then all of a sudden I was chasing the dragon ever since. What was the thing that sparked your interest in engineering? Who sparked it? What sparked it? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think there was ever any doubt that I was going to be an engineer. I remember I was 5 years old when I got a original Nintendo. That'll date me. And we had, analog TV. We had a Betamax VCR because I think my dad made a poor choice there. And then we had the Nintendo, and my dad could not figure out how to get the Nintendo hooked up and not break the VCR. And while he was at work one day, I just did it. And he came home and he was all pissed off because he thought I broke the VCR, but it worked. And, fast forward a couple of years, I had a Walkman, and the Walkman stopped working. So I took it apart and I put it back together, and it worked. I had quite a few leftover parts. And that was a running joke in the family, It works, but there's always leftover parts. Well, what were the parts in there for the originally for anyway? So, many nights in junior high and high school where I'd take our home computer apart and, put it back together and, staying up all night because if it wasn't working in the morning, that was going to, be my butt. So there wasn't really a doubt in that. There was maybe a doubt in what type of engineer. Again, my dad was not actually a man of very many words in terms of profound advice. But one of the things he asked me one time was, do you want to know a little bit about everything or everything about something? And I said, well, I want to know a little bit about everything. And he kind of, derided me and say, oh, that's a jack of all trades, master of none, because he was actually in the trades, but he was like, extremely knowledgeable about plumbing. He would do plumbing systems for large commercial installations. So he was definitely, a master of one very specific area. And, he tinkered in other areas too, but that's always stuck with me. I've always loved, dabbling in a bunch of different things. And I think for especially the, Curtiss-Wright, where we do hardware, we do firmware, we do software, we do integrated solutions, not limiting myself to one engineering discipline has actually worked out really well.
And so at Curtiss-Wright, you guys are working in the defense, world, right? What are some of the challenges you're seeing currently in that space of defense and engineering? Obviously, the mixture of the two. How is AI thrusting us towards, or how is AI being implemented into the defense space, et cetera?
Yeah, and I just wanted to give a shout out. The day that we're recording this, I won't date us too much, but I'll tell you what it is. It is the day, the anniversary of the Wright brothers' first flight, and that is the legacy of Curtiss-Wright. So we've been in aerospace, when Aero started, and since space has began. So huge legacy there. And there's a lot of challenge in defense. And I don't have the exact numbers, but I'm not totally making this up. But if you go back to like 1970, about 75% of all R&D spending in the United States was funded by the government. And if you look to today, that's down to under 20%. So there's been this real shift. When I was a kid, and I'm not that old, mil-spec was the coolest stuff in the world. And now the coolest stuff in the world is coming out of Silicon Valley and around the world. It's so what our charter is to get that coolest stuff and make it ready for military operations. Everyone wants an iPhone phone for the soldier, but there's a lot of security issues with that. There's a lot of ruggedization challenges with that. My iPhone won't charge if it's like 80 degrees Fahrenheit out. We've got to be able to charge our equipment when it's 120 to 140 Fahrenheit out. So there's a lot of challenges, and we do have some upstarts that are coming into the defense space. Folks like Palantir and Anduril, and they're really good at rapid prototyping. But we do some things in defense for a reason. Stuff has to be really rock solid. You can move fast and break things to get to prototype. But when you actually go to field to people when lives are on the line, it's got to work. It's got to be certified. It's got to be tested. It's got to be secure. So really the challenge is bridging that gap. And, AI is right in the heat of that challenge, right? How good is it if you're 95% sure that that's the person that you're detecting? Are you going to make a life or death decision on 95% confidence, or 97 or an 87, right?
I'm not sure ChatGPT is 100% correct. I'm just saying. ChatGPT has definitely had some mistakes that it has given me when I just, again, they do math correct. When I say 2 + 2, they don't say 7, but there are definitely some other challenges when I picture ChatGPT.
Yeah, like if I'm just trying to write like a cute note to my girlfriend using ChatGPT, if I've got 5% hallucinations, it's not going to end end lives. In your world,
You use AI to write notes to your girlfriend?
no, that's not what I said.
Got it.
No.
Okay.
I'll
Guys, I'm not romantic.
No judging.
I'm not,
Dom and I are not judging you.
I'll cop to it. I sent my wife some flowers, a few weeks ago because our dog had surgery and she got up at 4 a.m. to take the dog to the vet ahead of the surgery, and I sent her some flowers that day. Just kind of sweet note, and I wrote a sweet note. And like they give you 200 characters, and I'm like, ChatGPT, help me fit these sentiments into 200 characters. It is good at that. But you're wearing the holiday sweater, so we were watching Family Vacation, the Christmas Vacation, best Christmas movie ever, and we were watching 4K for the first time. And after Clark, does the tree and the sap, they're up in bed, and he's flipping through this magazine, and his fingers are sticking to the pages, and it was actually detailed enough that you could see it was People magazine. And so I asked ChatGPT who's on the cover, and ChatGPT comes back and says, "Funny you should ask. That's JFK Jr." And I'm like, that doesn't look like JFK Jr. So I Google, going old school, and there's actually an article from People magazine. It's like, that's actually the director of the movie. It's like an Easter egg.
Oh,
so it was pretty far off, right? If you're asking it to identify the person, and it didn't identify that when it's readily available as a source. There's a long way to go. Conversely, I actually, unfortunately, our heat pump went out, and I called a local company, and they had a completely automated voice responder for scheduling appointments, and it worked perfectly. I was shocked. I normally hang up on those things or smash zero until a human picks up, but I decided to humor it, and it worked good. So I think we need very specific tools, and I think that'll help in defense because we can be very specific about the problem sets that we're trying to solve.
So how do you see AI and maybe a specific, use case, right? I'm not trying to get classified information, but use case
maybe
where
we're trying to get a little bit of classified information. I would
bit.
like to be on the side now. I've always wanted to be a secret agent.
Think of the clickbait that would be, right? We expose not real classified information, but a great area where AI, because again, and I read these articles, and full transparency, I am an investor, so I'm an owner of Palantir, and I have some stock, and it's done really, really well. And it's, you read these articles about how AI and defense, and you're like, oh, that's awesome. But I'm like, does that mean that soldiers are asking for love notes for their girlfriend? Where is a use case where you see AI in the defense sector being something that dramatically is transforming our military?
Yeah, and Palantir is one company that we're working with. We build fielded tactical hardware for the edge. So route, switch, compute, GPUs. We ruggedize them, make them ready to go out in the field. Palantir has done kind of to date all of their stuff up in the cloud. So we're working with them in the Army to field that on much smaller systems that are appropriate for the edge. But I think one area that's really easy for people to understand is camera feeds. Cameras coming off of drones. An analyst can stare at, maybe, let's be generous and say they can stare at 4 video feeds for an hour, not even 8 hours or 12 hours, and actually be confident about it. When you put AI in the mix, you can have AI even just flag interesting things. Hey, is that a bird or is that a plane? Or is it Superman? And you can flag and highlight and zoom in on that video feed and have a human give a second opinion, or you can refer it to a more specialized AI model. But the overwhelming amount of data that is being created these days is just more than humans can handle. So let the machines do what the machines are good at. Let the humans do what the humans are good at. And we can actually, have a fighting chance out there against our adversaries that aren't quite as selective about how they're using AI.
No, that's awesome. That's a great point, right? So you have the human can watch four video feeds for, let's just say, 2 hours in a row. With the assistance of AI, they can watch 100 for 2 hours and only be alerted to check the important ones when something, the plane versus bird scenario pops up. That's awesome. So I
Yeah.
can see where it is impacting our military and able to assist them, not necessarily in place of, but assist them to be hundreds of times more efficient, which is why we have the best military on the planet because of
Yeah, and we've got the DoD likes to talk about human in the loop and human on the loop. So a human in the loop is they would be making the decisions. A human on the loop is they would be informed of the decisions that are being made by the AI systems. But then they can go and they can tweak things to fit the mission, to fit how the U.S. wants to operate.
That's awesome. And Curtiss-Wright has been at the forefront of this space for, as you said, dating back to the initial flight, right, the Wright brothers.
Right.
They've been at the forefront of it forever. You're now in a position where you're leading the charge of that, the CTO, right, the technical part of the organization. So obviously we're a recruiting agency. We get really in the weeds on who these teams are and how do you build them and so on. Over your time in growing, at every place you've been, if you can give one or two of your best nuggets as to like what makes the most well-performing engineering team that's able to deliver, whether now it's AI, right? So that's the current buzzword, but 10 years ago that was, or maybe it still was, I don't know, that might be top secret, but 20 years ago it wasn't. And as you mentioned, even there was VCRs and so on. What do you see as what makes that top performing team that you've been building?
Yeah, it's really, it's a lot of cross discipline skills. And not everyone on the team has to have them, but you need to have those people on the team. You need the electrical engineers that have written a little bit of firmware. Maybe it's not even production, firmware, but it's maybe a home project or something. They understand the vocabulary there. You need to have software engineers that have worked with hardware, so they don't just write assuming that they've got the entire cloud worth of GPUs to run their code. And there is an absolute place for experts. But generally they are going to need a larger team to actually solve the big problems. So I think that's really what I look for. And when I'm hiring, I really look for, what were you when you started your last job and what are you now? What did you learn? What did you grow in that position? And how did you contribute to the company, not just to the tasks that you were assigned? I think people that can pop their head up a little bit can be really, really valuable. And I do like, having small, multifunctional teams working on projects, not having hundreds of engineers on stuff. Because when you get beyond a certain point, each person, adds less and less.
Diminishing returns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I look at. I've interviewed people that, they really can't even tell me what the company that they worked for the last 5 years builds as a product. And to me, that's a little bit disappointing, a little bit, missing the forest for the trees.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, we work with publicly traded companies. One of the ones that you named earlier that may or may not be a competitor, has been a client for a while. And there's like common mistakes that people are making today in interviews. And you mentioned one of them, which is like, I can't even explain the business value. I can give you all the technical jargon. Like, these are the tools I used every day. These are the things that I did every day. But you're like, okay, but what's the business value that you're adding to the team? And they're incapable of explaining it. And that's a common frustration that we hear from customers all the time, which is, as we're evolving, especially with AI, like, being a good coder is not good enough. Being a good coder is expected. Being a good therapist with these coding assistants are expected, but we're getting to a place in a world where we have to be a lot more client facing. We have to understand the business problems a lot more. We're expecting that people need to understand design and architecture downstream at like earlier level engineering, or that's what I'm hearing from the customers that we're working with. I'm curious to you is like, how do you believe like the implementation of AI assistants and all of these other things are going to change the early stage engineering experience? And how do we set up the early engineers for success? So we're building teams, not just now, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I mean, y'all have been around for a long time, right? So like, how do we continue building the next generation up?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it's changing month by month. And the power of these tools is incredible, right? You can use a code assistant that really accelerates. I wrote code for a living, many years ago. If I want to do a little project, I can use the agent, and it saves me from trying to remember and looking up documentation for hours. You can ask it to prototype something. You can really get a lot of acceleration. I think when we're going to field safety critical systems, near safety critical systems, you probably don't want AI in the actual production code, at least not in 2025 going into 2026. But it can really help accelerate that. But some of the big risks that I see with people that have grown up with this or gone through high school with AI being pretty powerful is that you still got to know what problem you're trying to solve, and you need to be able to sanity check the AI. Is it giving me reasonable solutions, or is it just regurgitating the top Google examples that were probably AI generated to start with? I talk a little bit about AI mad cow disease, because you're feeding AI synthetic content, you're feeding AI poorly generated content, and I think we're at risk of being in this negative feedback loop where AI tools actually get worse. I think we saw that in some recent Chat GPT releases, and they revised it and changed the models, and they can pivot very quickly. But it is not a constant up and to the right, getting better. Like maybe we thought it was going to do 3 years ago. It is definitely peaks and valleys on that way up and to the right.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I know that as we're talking to companies around scaling, hiring, whether that's early stage, mid stage, senior level, the world is starting to see a lot of these like AI assisted applications starting to come in and flooding online applications. And I know that a lot of our clients are starting to lean on recruiting agencies or third party services or RPO, whatever they might be leaning on. How are you guys attracting new talent right now? How are you guys finding the right people and cutting out some of the noise? Because I mean, man, we're looking at resumes all the time where it's like, this isn't the right this isn't actually the person that
it's not even real.
It's not even, I don't even know if it's real. It's not the person. Like, what are you guys doing to make sure that you're attracting the right people? Are you guys doing networking things? Are you working with agencies? Like, what are you doing to like find the right folks?
Yeah, and we've been in a strong growth period, but it hasn't been a rapid expansion. So over the last couple of years, most of our hires have come from personal referrals, and that is great. Sorry guys, but if I get someone that someone's worked with for years, that is a huge leg up. I'll also say that some of the struggles. Some of the larger tech companies laying off some really good people has helped. We do a lot of internal recruiting, and I've asked them to like, hey, let's look at the resume, but let's go look at their LinkedIn. Let's make sure it's even the same person. Let's make sure that that things match up and line up. And are they telling fibs on LinkedIn that they wouldn't tell necessarily on their resume, or vice versa? So that's a big part. And then when it is a really hard to place position, working with trusted recruiters, and I'm not just trusting the recruiter to say, hey, this resume has these 6 buzzwords that you're looking on it. It's like, no, the recruiters actually talk to this person. This is a living, breathing person. They can work in a team. They can articulate their thoughts, clearly, not under pressure. You shouldn't be under a lot of pressure in day-to-day work. I'm not a fan of the stress interviews, but you need to be able to explain your thoughts to me. So much of, interaction on a team is selling your ideas. So you need to be able to sell yourself, not overboast about your accomplishments, but explain them and why they were significant to the teams that you worked on before. So I think that is, where recruiters can really step in, because, I don't scale. I can't talk to, candidates all day. But in my talent acquisition team, they're hiring for a company that's already 8,000 people. Who knows how many job openings we've got. For those really, hard to place, very bespoke positions, working with the recruiting partners is really powerful.
Well, yeah, because again, we're hearing from a lot of clients and we see it internally is AI has accelerated the noise, right? What used to be, whether it was 100 resumes or, it's like all of a sudden you'd get 1,000. And to Shane's point, it is very clear many of them aren't even real. Or then you talk about, hey, sometimes resume, check out their LinkedIn, and they're wildly different. And it's because, again, there is so many of these assisted models that are just flooding the market to, I don't know, sell clicks, I guess would be the
Yeah, and
cheaper
I think on
form, right?
the screening side, AI can help as well. There's you're going to get a lot. You put something up on LinkedIn, you're going to get 1,000 submissions. Hey, let's filter out those people. I'm looking for someone with 10 years of experience. Let's filter out those 2, 3, 4 years of experience, because I don't think every year of experience is at all equal. Let's filter out those people that are maybe not in the region or the time zone that I want. Let's filter out those people that have really egregious errors on it, and get that 1,000 down to maybe 100 that humans can look at.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, that's where in a lot of ways we've had to work with our clients and we've come into play because of the flooding that you're getting. And then we're even finding some of those filtering mechanisms. They say, hey, get me someone with 10 years experience. And you start looking at all of them and it's based on a graduation date. But if someone has their high school graduation date, that shows up, right? And it's like, nope, they got 6 years of experience, not 10 years of experience. And there's so much where, again, to your point, now granted, we're not creating defense systems. So this isn't life or death, what we do or what your talent acquisition team does, but you're seeing the same stuff where AI gets 90%, it's good, but we're not at that place where, boy, it's really figured out how to read between the lines of college graduation, high school graduation, or do they not put their high school, etc. So we're seeing a lot of the same stuff. So obviously with such a large organization, you have another challenge, and we've talked to some people, which is the culture challenge and what kind of people you're trying to find, because I'm sure not everyone fits the exact same. When you're a small company and you're based in Chicago, Illinois, and all 5 of your people show up to your office in Chicago, you're going to get 5 Chicagoans, right? It's going to be a relatively, we'll call it homogeneous little pot there. But as you've expanded to the size that you are, you have people from all cultures. Are you guys all on site or is it remote as well?
We're a huge mix. The defense division is about a dozen, maybe a few more different sites, across the world.
Yep.
So we work a lot remote. Any given site and any given job role is really going to depend. Like our mechanical engineers are working in the office, 80+% of the time. Our software engineers are working in the office 20% of the time. It really depends on the role, the location. And I really applaud Curtiss-Wright leadership for letting the sites manage their staff what they think is appropriate for the job that needs to get done.
So how
But
have
I will say I've got a lot more people that want to come into the office than I did 2 years ago. I think people are post-COVID. They're getting lonely. They're realizing they're missing out on those interactions and that team building when all you're just in Slack or in Teams. It can get a little isolating.
Yeah, and
But
sometimes you just want to see how tall is your coworker, right, Shane? You can sit as high up as you want in
I'm
that
tall.
chair,
That's what it
but
is.
you're
I'm
not
tall.
taller. So how do you balance that ability to you got people in all throughout the world, which means different time zones, different cultures, some 20% in the office, some 80% in the office. Are there some themes that Curtiss-Wright does, and really specifically you, to make sure that the culture that's been there for a very, very long time persists?
Yeah, it is a challenge when you have people working in different time zones and different locations on different product offerings. But our CEO, she was a card carrying engineer, and we are kind of an engineering led organization and a innovation led organization, and that is our culture. Is we solve the hard problems, we solve them better than anyone else, and let's take care of our customers, let's take care of our people, let's take care of our investors. Those are all important things. And then, we've got, corporate guidelines like challenge the status quo. That is one of our top 3 initiatives always. And people are encouraged to challenge the status quo. We don't just do things because it's the way we've always done things for the last, 96, 97 years as a publicly traded company, going back 120 as to the Wright brothers. Things have changed. We've, seen, the automobile come about, we've seen, massive industrialization. We've seen, all of these things change, the computer revolution. We were there. It's nothing but adapt. What you're doing today is almost assuredly not what you're going to be doing in 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, and I know for you, right, Dom, we talked off camera where you're really passionate about getting involved in the local community. You're really passionate about finding people that you can mentor and kind of grow. Can you talk to us a little bit about like some of the things that you do outside of work, maybe inside of work that you do to try to curate, raise people up, and to mentor people? Because I think you're doing some really cool stuff in your local community as well.
Yeah, and I get quite a bit of flexibility with Curtiss-Wright to do these things, and there are a lot of evenings and weekends, but it's a meeting here and there during business hours. One of my mentors, Charlie Kawasaki, he was the former CTO of Packstar. So I came from Packstar. They got acquired by Curtiss-Wright 5 years ago. But anyway, when his daughter was in high school, she was interested in cybersecurity, but there was not a lot of resources, especially for young girls. So together they started Northwest Cyber Camp. So it's a week-long summer camp for high school students to get them interested or advance their skills in cybersecurity. Take all comers at all levels, and I help do a lot of planning for that. I do guest speaking for that, and that has really given a lot of exposure to the next generation. And it's great because we don't see your typical computer science, directed people. Those they might come, but they might already be beyond what we're offering there. We see a lot of young girls, a lot of people of color. We focus a lot on rural communities that are less served by these programs, and I've really enjoyed that. And that's kind of expanded my role in the state. I'm a board member for the Technology Association of Oregon, which does a lot of workforce development training, trying to bring people into tech roles that maybe didn't have tech roles before. And that actually, got me to be part of the State of Oregon Cybersecurity Advisory Council. So I work with the state universities, and we have actually set up a teaching hospital essentially for cybersecurity. So there is a cybersecurity operations center that is staffed by students, and we offer those services to rural communities and other, states or not states, but like towns and cities, municipalities that can't do their own cybersecurity. They can get someone watching their back, and students can get hands-on working with real world tools. And it's a win-win-win because now those people, when they graduate, they're much better prepared to jump right into industry.
So who's smarter, the ducks or the beavers?
Well, it depends.
You gotta pick a side. You gotta pick a side. You're being recorded, and this is going to be blasted to 6 million people. Are you a fan of the
University of Oregon is great. They got a great football team, but Oregon State, that's the engineering. That's where I went. Jensen Huang just has made a $50 million contribution to an AI center at the Oregon State University, and they're going to be one of the leading universities in that space on the West Coast, if not in the nation. So there's a lot of great things going down there. And, I got to give a shout out to Portland State as well. They've got a great organization for all types of things. Actually, the gentleman that works on the Cybersecurity Advisory Council from that university, he's in public policy, which has a profound impact on security and information technology and business development. Being an introvert at heart, when I met him, I'm like, oh, public policy. But in working with him over the last several years, it has really enlightened me to how important those aspects are too.
All right, got it. So smart people go to Oregon State, football players go to Oregon, and Portland State's also really nice. All right,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
All right, so
They're going to get me in trouble.
Yeah, I know. That was my goal. See if I could walk into the booby trap. We'll give you one last booby trap, and then I'll have a fun question for you. You mentioned, young girl getting into STEM, stuff like that. Brings up something that is also will date this episode here. Really, really controversial right now. Australia has banned social media. We're talking AI. We're talking technology.
People under the age of 16.
They didn't ban social media. Sorry, they banned social media for people like this girl that you mentored and so on. So, what are your thoughts on Australia public policy, which you just mentioned, stepping in and banning social media for people under 16?
It's really interesting on so many levels. We could talk about this. I actually just got back from Australia. I think the ban wasn't in effect. I don't think it goes into effect until the end of the year. I do think that social media, unrestricted access to social media is toxic. I think it's become pretty clear. I don't know about cutting them off wholesale. So much of young people's social life revolves around social media. I think there needs to be some type of limits. And, I think a lot of the trouble with social media is in the algorithms. I remember, back in the day, it was just show me a chronological feed. And to me, that wasn't, you didn't get this infighting. You didn't get so much of this echo chamber. So it'll be really interesting to see how that happens. It's a technological ban. There's a old saying, the internet sees censorship as damage and routes around it. It's not that hard to bypass, at least today, from what I've heard. But I applaud them for trying something. But I think I probably would have crept up on it. Hey, you can do, an hour a day, 5 hours a week, only between, 3 p.m. and 8 p.m. or something like that. Not during school, not up at 2 a.m. stressing out about this. So it's definitely difficult, and I think we'll see how things land.
Well, again, gosh, we could have a whole episode on feelings on this, right? I got 5 kids ranging from 11 to 17 years old. I see it firsthand. By and large, my kids are really good kids. They're outdoors, they're athletic. They're not just sitting on their phones all day. And even they, I believe, are on there too much. But we have so much information that shows the damage, and this is empirical data, the damage that can be done on social media to young people. Not that different than, as I picture this, and again, someone can tell me you're crazy, but smoking, right? We know smoking is bad, right? Smoking is bad. Now, people need to have their choice. If they want to smoke, they're allowed to smoke. We believe in freedom and all those things. But at some point, someone came along and said, hey, smoking under 18 is just not okay. They can't handle it. They don't know how to. Their lungs are like, so no, you cannot have a cigarette under 18. Now, can you work around it? Sure. Can you, you and I are old enough, Dom, that, we had the little pull machines where
we got some Silk Road situations.
Yeah,
happening.
right.
We're not going to get into a Silk
There
Road
are ways.
conversation.
There are ways to get around all of these things, like you said. But at the same time, I applaud them for attempting to go, we know it's bad. There's probably better ways, as you stated, of policing it for young people. But at the very least, we're going to say none. None. And then we'll maybe figure out how to reintroduce it.
Hey, and leave it to the continent that has all the creepy crawly things where they like that like
Scariest continent
they
in
are
the
the
world.
scariest continent in the world, testing it out for the rest of us. So we'll allow that little experiment to go out and see what happens. Maybe there'll be more like things of people boxing some kangaroos. I don't know. Spider videos. Ooh,
But those won't be on social media.
They won't be on social
those
media.
kids don't. I guess they'll still have to
maybe
go.
that's what it really is Australia's like, we have a reputation problem. People keep posting too many videos about the critters. Let's get them off of social media.
All right.
I'm just
All right. So here's the
Yeah.
fun question. You brought it up earlier. You've already stated publicly your favorite Christmas movie is Christmas Vacation. Is that accurate?
That has got to be accurate.
Yeah, it's
That
mine
has
too.
got to. Yeah. Christmas Vacation, A Christmas Story, and Gremlins.
Wait, did you,
Gremlins
Gremlins?
is awesome. I reference
Gremlins is
all the time.
absolutely a Christmas movie.
Yeah,
I think
great.
what's more fun
I
is
agree
the
with this.
arguments
This is awesome.
over what is a Christmas movie and what is not. Is Die Hard a Christmas movie? Is Gremlins a Christmas movie? Is Harry Potter, as Shane
Harry Potter and
mentioned-
Gremlins are totally Christmas movies, and I love this. Yes.
Mhm.
Totally.
What? Did Gremlins take place during Christmas season?
Yeah.
Is that why?
Oh yeah, I mean the Gizmo was a gift. He was a Christmas gift.
Gizmo was a gift. Yeah.
Ah, okay. I
Yeah,
haven't seen
yeah.
that movie in 20 years.
It's awesome.
See, now you've got an excuse to watch it.
Yeah, I can put it on with my kids and be like, hey, we're gonna watch Christmas movies. We're gonna watch
Yeah.
Gremlins.
I kind of forgot that Gremlins was a Christmas movie, and I reference that movie at least 2 to 3 times a week.
All right,
Yeah.
so everyone needs to let's see, go to Oregon State University because it's the best public university in Oregon. No longer use social media and watch Gremlins. That is what we have learned today. Yeah. All right.
Mhm.
A lot of good takeaways.
I think that's good advice. I can stand behind that.
All right. Well, Dom, this was a lot of fun. How can, for all the people who want to get involved with Curtiss-Wright or just maybe get to know you even better because they're like, wow, what an awesome team. They're doing some amazing stuff. I love their approach to AI and defense, and what an amazing company that's been around for 120 years and is at the forefront of making our defense the strongest in the world. How can they get a hold of you? How can they apply for a job, etc.?
Yeah, so our website that's easiest to find the jobs from is curtisswrightds.com. That shortcuts you a few steps in finding. I'm not hard to find on LinkedIn. If you send me a connect request and say, hey, I saw you on this podcast, as long as you don't tell me that you're a salesperson and you're trying to sell me a new AI product, I'll probably connect with you. And that's how we connected. So I'm really not hard to find, and that's intentional.
And do not tell him that you're a duck, because then he probably won't respond to you. No, I'm kidding. He likes you guys too.
I've got lots of friends and colleagues that are ducks.
I know. I like the states that have two large battling universities like that, like Michigan State, because they do. There's a lot of
It's
fun.
the Rose Bowl blood in you.
Well,
You
Wisconsin
yeah,
just
you
has Wisconsin. Illinois really just has Illinois. They don't really compete against the other Illinois schools.
So you're like an only child wishing that you were at a school that
Yeah.
yeah.
I wish I grew up where like mom went to one and dad went to the other and they hate each other, but they love each other. Like that's like a fun upbringing. So, all right. Well, Dom, this was a ton of fun. Hopefully we can check back in with you in 6 months to a year and just hear about all the growth.
Yeah, it'd be great. It was a great conversation, a lot of fun.
And watch.
We'll do it for Christmas in July.
Yes, we will talk about what's the best summer barbecue movie or something like that. There you go. summer movie. All right. Well, to everyone else, subscribe, like, comment, and connect with Curtiss-Wright and Dom Perez. Goodbye.